What's up, slackers? Welcome to Book Cheats. Today we're going to be talking about Of Mice and Men, Chapter 4. In the beginning of this chapter, we're brought to a small room that's attached to the barn. This room is Crooks' room, the black stable buck. It describes his room as being small, with tools and equipment kind of scattered everywhere, but his room is pretty organized and clean. His bed is made of straw with a blanket over it. As Crooks is sitting on the bed, Lennie opens the door and stands in the doorway. When Crooks looks over at Lennie, Lennie has a 10-gallon smile on his face. Crooks tells Lennie that he has no right to be in his room. Lennie says that he just came to the room to look at his puppy. He saw a light underneath the door and was wondering what it was from, and that's why he opened the door. Crooks says that he himself isn't wanted in the bunkhouse and that he doesn't want people in his room. Lennie asks Crooks why he isn't wanted in the bunkhouse. Crooks says it's because he's black. Lennie tells Crooks that everybody went into town except for him and Candy. Crooks keeps trying to tell Lennie to leave his room, and eventually he gets so adamant about it that Lennie starts to frown. Crooks feels sorry, like when you make a kid cry kind of sorry, and he tells Lennie to sit down for a little bit. Crooks asks what Candy's doing at the moment, and Lennie says that he's figuring something out. Crooks asks what he's trying to figure out, and Lennie says that he's figuring out about rabbits. Crooks is kind of taken back and says that Lennie's nuts. Lennie defends himself and says that it's true and that they're gonna have a ranch and raise rabbits and live off the fat of the land. Crooks tells that guys always talk, but it never means anything. Because Lennie is talking about a ranch, Crooks remembers his father's chicken ranch from when he was a boy. Crooks then changes the subject and asks Lennie what he would do if George never came back. Lennie's mood immediately drops and he says that George wouldn't do that. Crooks asks what if he got hurt or got killed and he couldn't come back. Lennie says that George is a smart guy and that he wouldn't get hurt. Crooks keeps hassling him about it, and at this point Lennie's mad. Crooks says that if George left, they would tie Lennie up like a dog. Lennie gets up and starts walking towards Crooks, frustrated at the ideas he's implanted in his mind. He insists to know who hurt George. Crooks freaks out and tells Lennie he was just kidding. He tells Lennie that he needs to settle down. Crooks tells Lennie that he needs to appreciate having somebody to be his friend in his life, because if he was black like him, he wouldn't have anybody. Crooks complains that he has to read books all day because he doesn't get to hang out with anybody, and that books are a poor substitute for human interaction. Crooks apologizes for scaring Lennie. Crooks telling Lennie about having friends reminds him about his childhood. He starts to reminisce about his father's chickens ranch. Crooks talks about how he had 2 brothers and that life on the ranch was great. With Crooks talking about his old ranch, Lennie says that they're really gonna do it, that George, Lennie, and Candy are gonna own their own ranch. Crook teases him again about having the ranch and says that everybody says it, but nobody actually does it. Candy comes into the barn and calls after Crooks and asks if he's seen Lennie. Crooks tells Candy Lennie's in his room. When Candy comes over to the doorway, Crooks irritably invites him in. Candy says that in all the years he's worked there, this is the first time he's ever been in Crooks' room. Lennie interrupts their conversation and asks what he's been figuring about rabbits. Candy says that he's figured out a way that they can make some money off of the rabbits. Crooks interrupts and says they ain't never gonna get a ranch, and that guys say it all the time but nobody ever does it. Candy says they're gonna do it because George says they're gonna do it. Candy then excitedly brags about their elaborate plan to get this ranch. Crooks says that he's never seen anybody do it, and if they actually do it, that he wants to come onto the ranch and do odd jobs and just have a place to stay. They suddenly hear a voice coming from the doorway. Anybody seen Curley? It's Curley's wife. Blah blah blah. They all turn to her and see that they haven't seen Curley. She semi-jokingly says that they left all the weaklings at the ranch and that she knows where they're at. Candy, pissed off, asks her why she's asking if she already knows. She jeers at them and says that whenever guys talk to her alone, they're really nice to her, but whenever they get in groups, they're really mean because they don't want the other workers to tell Curley that they've been nice to her. They don't want the other guys to basically get dirt on them to tell Curley. Crooks tells Candy's wife that she should go back to the house because they don't want any trouble there. Curley's wife says she just likes to talk to people. Curley tells her that she has a husband and that she needs to stop being trouble. Curley's wife starts complaining that all Curley does all day is talk about how he can beat up anybody on the ranch, and that it's the same story every time. She then changes her mood and asks what really happened to Curley's hand. The guys stay silent for a minute, not knowing what to say. Candy finally says that he got his hand caught in a machine. She asks who beat him up. Candy repeats the machine story. Candy's wife starts to get pissed off because she knows everybody's lying about it. She complains that she's so pretty and she has to talk to the losers on the ranch and enjoy it, just because she's so bored. Candy, getting somewhat offended, and with the pride of his new ranch and the prospect of his dream in mind, tells her off that he doesn't care if she gets them fired, that they're going to have their own ranch, and that it's going to be way better than this place. Curly's wife laughs and says that he's ridiculous because guys like them just waste their money on booze and women. Candy says he doesn't care if she knows, but that she needs to leave because she isn't wanted there. Curly's wife looks at Lennie and sees the bruises all over his face. She asks Lennie where he got those bruises from. Lennie can't think of anything but the standard answer and says, "He got his hand caught in a machine." She laughs and says, "Okay." She's figured out what happened. Candy breaks in and says to leave Lennie alone. He says that he's gonna tell George on her. Lennie breaks in and says that George is gonna let him tend the rabbits. Curly's wife says, "If that's what you want, I'll get you some rabbits." Crooks says that he's had enough and that he's gonna tell the boss to never let her in the barn again. Curly's wife gets pissed off that even Crooks is standing up to her, and she says that she could get him strung up on a tree. Crooks shrinks away. Candy shrinks away too because he realizes it's true. The guys finally come back from town. He tells Curly's wife if she leaves right now, he won't tell Curly that she was there. Before she leaves, she leans in towards Lennie and says that she's glad that Lennie beat him up, that somebody needed to do it. After she leaves, the guys complain about what a devil she is. Crooks has had enough at this point and wants them to leave the room. Candy apologizes to Crooks for all the black stuff. George comes into the barn looking for Lennie. When George finds Lennie in Crooks' room, he scolds him for being in there. Candy interrupts and says that he's figured out a way that they can make money with the rabbits. George gets pissed off and reminds them that they're not supposed to tell anybody. Candy lies and says that he only told Crooks. As they're leaving the room, Crooks says to Candy that what he said about doing odd jobs around the ranch was just a joke and to forget about it. They leave, and that concludes the chapter. Thanks so much for watching Book Cheats. Please like and subscribe. If you have a question from your homework, leave it down below and I'll get to it as soon as I can. Also, if you have a book that you need to read for school, please leave a comment down below, and I'm looking for some books to read right now, so I'll try to get to your book, whoever says it first, or if I'm interested in the book. Thanks so much and have a great day. And as always, slack on. He got his hand cut in a machine. He got his hand cut in a machine. Why am I English? What the freak? Okay. Candy. What the